I'm just going to say a few words before we bring out the superintendent, our great education reporter, Rocio Hernandez. First, I do want to acknowledge the presence. There's some Washoe County trustees here, I think, right? Stand up, come on. Okay. There will be no attempts to intimidate your employee tonight. Do you understand? I'm here to protect him. I also see the former state treasurer, one of my favorite people in Nevada, Patty Caffaretta, is here. And of course, a consistent friend of the Indian supporter, the former governor, president of UNR, and his lovely wife are here. Brian Sandoval and Lauren, go ahead and stand up. Brian Sandoval is the only elected official I know who will tell you that I never made him mad, right, Governor? See, he can lie. This is part of a series of events that some of you may know that we do both in Reno and in Las Vegas. One of the hallmarks, I hope, of the Independent is we try to elevate the conversation, try to get people to talk about subjects that are important to the folks all around the state. We've become the only, we're almost 9 years old. Can you guys believe it? I can barely believe it. And I'm so proud, and I say this all the time, and I'm not being glib. I'm celebrating my 41st year in Nevada this month, believe it or not, and I've done a lot of different things in journalism as a reporter, a columnist, a TV host, but the Indy is by far the thing that I'm proudest of, and I'm not being glib when I say it's the one that has the least to do with me. I had the idea to start it, but as people like one of our co-editors, Riley Snyder, who was there at the beginning, he's here tonight, and we have some of our reporters out there. I saw Eric and Tabitha, who are both fantastic young talents. I am so proud of them every day because they've bought into the culture of what we're trying to do at the Indy, which is to give people in-depth information every day about issues in a world that, as many of you, all of you know, is growing increasingly chaotic. And so we try to unconfuse you. That's a word I just made up. And I hope all of you read the Indy every day. I hope even more that you donate to the Indy every month because we are doing very well. We have money in the bank, but we're not sustainable. And so tell all your friends, if you're not a monthly donor, you should be a monthly donor. As much as I'd like to say that Riley and Eric and Tabitha are free, they're not free, trust me. And so to pay them, we need donors to appreciate what we do. And I know a lot of you in this room are donors. So I want to thank you for that. Before we get started, and we're going to talk to the superintendent for about an hour, I do want to thank all of our sponsors. We couldn't do these events without the generosity of sponsors, and we have several for this one, including the Auto Museum, of course. Let me just read them off real quickly. Core Construction, UNR, the Raiders, Southwest Gas, Opportunity 180, the Building and Construction Trades Council of Northern Nevada, EDON, the Abbey Agency, and the DeCastro Verde Law Group. Let's give them a round of applause for supporting the Indy. I'm going to bring out now Rocio Hernandez and the superintendent. Joe Ernst, you guys can come out. We're going to get started. We're going to talk for about an hour, unless the superintendent doesn't like us and decides to leave halfway through. Have a seat. Mm-hmm. I always like to say, and I mean it sincerely, and I've already told the superintendent this, and I told the Clark County Superintendent and the governor, who's done many events with us, and Brian Sandoval did an event with us when he was a somebody, and the bottom line is that none of these folks have to do this. And so the fact that they're willing to make time to come and sit on a stage and have to deal with obnoxious people, not Rocio, is a real credit to you, Superintendent, and we really do appreciate your coming tonight. So let me start it off, and then I'm going to have the person with substance jump in, and that's Rocio. I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but all superintendents, to some extent, part of your job is being a salesman, right? You have to sell what the district is doing. So here's your chance to give your elevator pitch about the Washoe County School District, what you're proud of and what you're worried about.
Okay, thank you. I'll need about 30 minutes for that response, so hopefully that'll be acceptable.
I have never interrupted anybody in all the times I've done interviews, so don't worry about that.
I do think it's important to be a person that promotes the good things that are happening in the school district. I think there's times where education maybe isn't painted in as accurate a light as it could be. I think we really, as a school district last year, had some very particular focus around our strategic plan and some real priority areas. And what we saw was just terrific progress. We saw great progress in reducing chronic absenteeism. We saw some of the highest, most historical proficiency gains in our school district history. And what is really encouraging about that is that the pre-pandemic academic levels has always been something that we have strived to get back to. And not only did we get back to that, but went past some of those pre-pandemic academic levels in proficiencies. And I think something to be very proud of is that we saw the growth from all of our students. All populations of students made progress in proficiency gains compared to the prior year. And so I think that that's encouraging. That's encouraging signs that we're moving in the right direction. It's a demonstration that when we think about our resources, we align those to our priorities, and we keep that real focus on those priorities, that we can really take things to really positive outcomes.
So before Rocio jumps in with some specifics, what worries you? What keeps you up at night?
There's plenty of things that worry and keep me up at night. I think our budget is front and center. I think it's a very real aspect in education. And, you know, I think you're probably familiar that last year, coming into this school year, we had budget cuts of over $8 million. We recently presented to our Board of Trustees, and we're looking at potentially for the following year, another $18 million. And what I can say is that it's also opportunity. I think it's opportunity for us to really provide a great deal of introspection and analysis of our organization. I think it's an opportunity for us to really get strong program evaluation to narrow in on those things that we know are having success. And I think it's also an opportunity for us to evolve forward with some newer needs that we have in front of us in education.
All right, he's an optimistic guy. I don't know if we're going to get him off of that, Rocio. It's up to you.
Well, I wanted to dig in a little bit about those budget woes, and in particular, like the student enrollment declines. I was wondering if it's, it's not uncommon, and we see it across the country, but in Washoe County School District, what's been driving those enrollment declines, and is it what you expected to be happening at this rate, at this amount, this fast?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. It really is something that we see across the nation. And even beyond the nation, we see international declines in school rates. And what we've tried to do is really put some thought into what are driving those declines. And interestingly enough, we work with our demographer, and we have seen some significant declines in birth rates, and that has really contributed to these declines. We look at folks that are moving into the area. We have so many people moving into the Truckee Meadows. And oftentimes right now, these are not some of the bringing families with them. And so we're seeing less per students in the households throughout the Truckee Meadows. So the decline is something that we had anticipated. And I think it's been a demonstration of some proactive thinking around facilities modernization planning, and really having a plan to address this decline in enrollment. And I think that right now, our trajectories are matching in terms of what that decline is. But we see those as some of the real primary areas that are contributing to declines in enrollment.
I mean, some of those factors are, of course, out of the district's control, but is there anything that, within your power that you can do to maybe, I guess, attract or, even gain back students who maybe have been leaving the system to explore other opportunities like charter schools, private schools, as those grow in popularity and size?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the stronger we become as a school district, the more tangible achievements and outcomes that we demonstrate to our community, the greater that we work with our families. It is really important, a former principal, former teacher, it is really important to make sure that we are connecting with our families. And I think there's continued, always work in that area, but I think really demonstrating some visible excellence in progress going forward. And I think that's a way of bringing additional people back into our system. And then I think those outreach efforts to folks that maybe have left our district or might be interested in coming in our district to create strong communication with them. But I think that's the exciting part is when we see some of the progress that we've had last school year, it was really a commitment that we made coming in, and that was let's demonstrate some really strong short-term progress, but let's not do that at the expense of long-term sustainability. And I'm really happy with the way that we're balancing those two pieces, not just getting those short-term gains, but not having that longer-term sustainability. So I think those are a couple of ways in which we can continue to invite and bring students and families back into our school district.
What's going to happen if the district isn't able to slow down this bleed fast enough, or what will that mean for students? I know I've seen, the plans for consolidation of schools, and how does that affect the students and the community who, these are beloved institutions in their community? Yeah,
we've seen across the country, like we said, rapid declines, and we've seen school consolidations and school closures. What I think that we have in Washoe County School District is a very proactive plan to address that so we don't get into a situation where we're trailing behind that. That being said, I think anytime we are looking to consolidate schools and disrupt communities, that has to be done with a great deal of care, empathy, communication, foresight. And so we really want to make sure, as we are doing this, that we are working with our communities, gathering their input, because then there's opportunity also on the other side of that. And that's when we look at repurposing and reactivating these facilities for the benefit of our community. And we've got great community partners, and I think there's lots of interest in what we might be able to do. But it is really important that we proceed as an organization when we are going towards school consolidation to make sure that we're communicating fairly, openly, and honestly with our communities and inviting them in to be a part of the process and a part of the thinking as we're going forward.
I guess what I'm wondering, Superintendent, is that you've talked about some of the incremental progress that you've made and some of the numbers that you're proud of. But there's this ex-athlete in Las Vegas, I don't think I need to tell you his name, he used to do a series of commercials, image is everything. And if people believe that the public school system is failing, whether it's here, or Clark County, or anywhere else, it's very difficult to get them off of that perception. And someone I talked to today, a longtime Reno resident, said, you got to ask him why he hates charter schools so much. And whether you can address it if you want, but more so it's the resistance to change, I think, that people see in the public school system, and that they may not know the numbers that you're saying. So what are you doing to educate this community that things aren't so bad?
Very fair question, and I appreciate that. I think it's important immediately to eradicate the idea that the education system is failing. I think that is a really narrow approach to how we're thinking about education. And a couple of examples I'll use is that we have 88% of our families that are very happy with the educational experience that their students are getting.
Where's it? You did a survey? Is that where that number comes from?
Every year we do a family survey.
Okay.
And so we're seeing that. And so we know that we have that. That means we've got 12% that we want to keep working on and keep elevating. But I go back to, we have accountability frameworks, and these accountability frameworks can sometimes paint a more narrowed picture, not representing the whole of things that are happening at schools. As a former principal, we had a student severely impacted. We had to keep our eyes on this student every day for 2 years, everywhere that student went. One of the most gratifying days I had in education was being a part of his graduation and seeing the progress that he made and seeing him graduate from high school. So I think it's important to not oversimplify the way that we're describing education as a failing system. I think when you start to look at, we hear a lot, Nevada is the 49th state in the country. Well, I think we all know comparisons, we want to be careful with comparisons. And I think when you look at per pupil funding, the proficiency rates that are happening across the board in Nevada, you compare that with per pupil funding in other SBAC consortium states that are testing, their proficiency levels are maybe 5% higher than our proficiency levels, yet those funding sources are almost double. So I think it's really important to just continue to look at education in far more sophisticated terms than just this is a 1-star, this is a 2-star. Now, I also think when we're talking about image is everything and how do we bring folks back, well, I hope that the fact that we cut the number of 1-star schools in half in 1 year, I hope that that's going to help bring people back. Double the number of 4- and 5-star schools in elementary. I hope that that's going to bring people back. So there's so much to it, but I really think it is not oversimplifying the way that we are describing education. Because I will tell you firsthand, as a teacher, as a principal, we're not failing. We're not. There's amazing things happening every day. Opportunities to visit our schools and see what's happening in our schools. And we see and we talk with our students and we engage them. There are many great things happening. So those are a part of it. It's really, that question has a lot of depth to it and could continue going on, but those are a couple of the immediate reactions I have.
So I appreciate your saying that the question had a lot of depth, but I'm not sure you answered the seminal point I was trying to make, which is how do you make sure that message that you're talking about gets out into the community at large, the business community, regular folks? Sure, 88% is great if that's true, but it's the perception and the reality of what the community feels about the public school system. I mean, you can't go talk to everybody in Washoe County, but what are the educational tools that you're using to let people know about the diminishing number of 1-stars, the increasing number of schools with more stars? What are you doing?
It's coordinated communication and helping our internal stakeholders, our teachers, our staff. I mean, we're a school district that has over 9,000 staff. One of the biggest areas that we have opportunity for improvement is making sure our own staff is educated in ways that they can communicate. The Truckee Meadows, the Reno Sparks area, everyone goes to different social functions, and I would gather that any of the educators in the room typically is asked about education. And when we are able to share and make sure our internal stakeholders can help with that, that's one aspect of coordinated communication. I think we have amazing community partners that have helped carry that message forward. And so I think active marketing campaign, we continue to really look at how can we improve the communication and the understanding of all to create a more accurate. And we continue to look at, strategize. I mean, I think one of the most amazing things that we are working on right now in our school district is the work around dual credits and concurrent credits. I have two amazing presidents in the audience here that we have created wonderful collaborations. And we just did a recent study that showed that we have the estimated savings that we have for our parents with dual and college credit is $4.3 million. So my hope is that we start seeing that on every billboard around town, and we see these types of things. There are wonderful, wonderful aspects. And while we communicate these at board meetings and we communicate them in smaller function, to your point, it is expanding the voice about what is happening and getting that out through our entire community.
And events like this are very helpful, are they not?
They are, and I really appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how important is funding to all of this work that the district wants to do in increasing star ratings and improving proficiency rates? As you know, per pupil funding hasn't been keeping up with the national average, and this session didn't necessarily turn the tide here. Last month we had our IndyTalks event with Superintendent Ebert, where she said that she supports ideas like property tax reform to increase funding. Is that something that you're also in support of? And how do you sell the governor and state lawmakers on this idea of passing reforms to improve investments in education?
Yeah, so a lot to that. First and foremost, I would say the passage of WC1 has been one of the most significant aspects that has happened in the Truckee Meadows that we are forever grateful for, and we are able to build schools like the Debbie Smith CTE Academy, and that is such a significant. We see rural counties, we see others really grappling with the facilities, the age of the facilities, and so we're very grateful for WC1. When you look at would I support or do we support additional funding for education? I'm a lifelong educator. I operate with a deep-seated belief that it is an investment in our community. And the more we invest in our community, the better for our entire community. So certainly I think as we have gone down and presented down in Carson City, we've continually advocated for additional funding. But as a public organization, it is important that we are demonstrating fiscal responsibility, and I think I've mentioned it, the return on investment. And when we can demonstrate return on investment, I think it provides additional opportunity for a willingness to invest even more. And I'll give you an example. So we had really been working on chronic absenteeism. We made an investment that's maybe a bit atypical, but our Board of Trustees put a lot of decision into allocating about $1 million towards our co-curricular, extracurricular clubs and activities that occur before and after school. We started last year in the neighborhood of 100 clubs and activities. And what these are student generated based on student interest. And the idea is that we are getting our students connected with like peers and engaged through topics that they like. Last year in doing that, our middle schools, high schools, and for the first time in elementary schools made significant progress. By the end of last year, we have just under 500 clubs, activities, and things like that after school, with this wide range from coding to knitting clubs to everything in between. And that's $1 million. And when we look at chronic absenteeism, and we know how substantial that is, Well, we've made some progress in chronic absenteeism, and this is a way that we're demonstrating return on our investment. So I think it's really important that we continue to demonstrate return on investment so that there gains even more willingness to fund it. Because again, when you compare per pupil funding in Nevada with other states, we definitely lag well behind. And again, as a lifelong educator, investment in education is investment in our community, and we all benefit from that.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned that the district is anticipating an $18 million deficit. How does that affect the work that the district's doing? Will that slow down some of this progress that you're making already?
Well, as John mentioned, sometimes I can be called naively optimistic. And I will say that it certainly is going to be a challenge. Those budget issues that we are encountering will challenge that. And I think one of the most important aspects in education is stability. When we look at improving schools and we look at improving our district, stability. And some of that stability comes from funding. And now when we are continuing to see the same type of funding towards it, it will make it challenging to move forward. Does it prevent us? Is it an excuse for us to not make progress? Absolutely not. I think we can continue moving forward. We can continue making progress, but we are really going to have to be thoughtful in the analysis that we have around it. And the budget cuts will lead to reductions in services for families. And one of the things that we saw over the summer when there were some interruptions in federal funding is we saw that where's it impacting? It's impacting some of our most in need students. And in the middle of the summer, we were working on before and after school programming is really important aspect of what we do. And that comes through federal funding, a part of it. And we had to immediately think about how are we going to continue to move that forward. And you don't want to just eliminate things because education is so comprehensive, has so much dimension to it, that if we just start taking pieces away, I'm not sure that's the best approach. So it'll offer us challenges. We'll take those challenges as opportunities. We'll try to continue to allocate funds towards our priorities. And the other thing that we're really making a commitment to is making sure that we're trying to keep it away from schools. Oftentimes there is conversation around administrative and how much administrative. Well, our percentage of administrative spending is far lower at 5.5% compared to districts or other organizations of our size. So then we start to look at the next piece of the puzzle, and we start to look at facilities and operations, and we have to start to think about how do we keep it away from these direct services for our students and families? And that's going to come with a lot of thought, a lot of analysis. It's going to come with working in partnership with our Board of Trustees, working in partnership with our community. But it'll be challenging, but it's not going to stop some of the progress that we're going to continue to make. So that's how I would go about responding to that.
So I love the phrase you used, interruptions in federal funding. Are you sure you weren't in politics at some point in your life, sir? So you've made this great progress that you have a right to be proud of in terms of turning some of these things around. I think you'll agree you're not there yet, but you're making, I don't understand how, $18 million, while it may not be a huge percentage of the budget, it's significant enough that it'd be very difficult when you're making this progress to suddenly have that boulder come roll over you. So talk about how you do that. You've already started thinking about it clearly, and I'm sure the trustees will have some say in this.
Oh, for sure.
But how do you cut and not have that boulder roll right over you again?
Yeah, so what we started this year is we've engaged in the budget process earlier than we ever have before, recognizing the mountain that we have to climb. And with really great work, we have already been able to identify a number of areas, fuel, electricity, other parts and other areas.
No heat in the schools?
No
Oh,
heat,
okay.
yeah. But we have good insulation. We've identified already about 10 million of that. I do anticipate the other 8.5 is going to be very challenging. It really will be.
They got the low-hanging fruit.
We
now.
did, and we've done that. And I think back to slowing momentum down, we want to continue to invest in priority areas. So when we are cutting, we also, at the same time, are continuing to repurpose funding towards priority areas to make sure that we're getting to the identified need support of that area. So the challenges are real. We're engaging in that process right now. We've engaged in it from a leadership team level. We've engaged in it from a programming level. Are hopeful that when it comes down to it, in working in partnership with our trustees and the decisions that are being made, that we're able to keep it away from students. But that challenge is real, and we're going to do that to the best possible extent we can.
Yeah, just to shift gears a little bit, another issue that a lot of school districts across the country grappled with after the pandemic was this increase of school violence. And I think in 2023, the district even worked with Governor Lombardo and lawmakers on a couple of school discipline bills that rolled back restorative justice policies. I was wondering, what has changed since those laws were implemented? Have you seen a decrease in school violence? Has the bills done what they aim to do?
I think the bills gave us a framework, and then it was around the implementation of the intent of those bills. And I think when you're looking at safety, safety really comes in layers. And so you start to look at physical safety, and we have really made a commitment to single point of entries in all of our buildings. We're working to finish up single point of entries at all of our high schools. We have equipped our teachers with emergency panic buttons that allow us quicker time. One of the always interesting things about trying to quantify investment is it's difficult to know how many times these things have stopped things before they actually have occurred. But we've made a significant investment in recognition of work that has been done. We have provided comprehensive professional learning for our staff around how to most successfully work with students to modify behaviors. We have seen a definite decrease in the number of major behaviors that are occurring in the district. And another layer to that is the investment we've made in school police. Right now, we have more school police than we have ever had before. In addition to that, we have doubled the number of campus supervisors. Campus supervisors are really important people in buildings. They are ones that connect with kids, develop relationships, and can kind of stay ahead of some of those behaviors. So we've really tried to layer the approach, and based on the data that we're seeing, we have definitely seen a decrease in the overall number of behaviors. I'll say this about behavioral data as well. Sometimes an increase, if that were the case, is not a bad thing. As educators, it's important for us to make sure that we're setting boundaries for our students. We have very clear expectations around appropriate behaviors. And so sometimes you might have to go up before you go back. I'm encouraged by the data that we're seeing in terms of reduction of that. But behavior is really an essential component of education. Another, again, when you put in layers, another one is phone away, learn today. Why? Because we know that not only are you losing engagement during learning time, but you're also sometimes increasing misbehaviors. I know some of our high school principals in the audience and things of that nature, they understand that. And so we've really tried to come at it from a layered and strategic approach to bringing those behaviors down. Bring behaviors down, learning environments and better, then you have better learning for our students.
As you're tougher on student behavior, to keep it down. How do you ensure that students don't get lost or disconnected after experiencing, like a suspension or expulsion?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite educational phrases is every day is an opportunity to begin again more successfully. And we have to embrace that with our students so that they don't get lost, so that they don't get disengaged. Sometimes there are unintended consequences of enforcing expectations, rules, helping establish boundaries for our students. But we have to continually embrace that every day is an opportunity for our students to begin again more successfully. And we need that to be the ethos in our entire system so that our students realize, I know I've made plenty of mistakes, and I know all of us in here have had times where we've done that. And so when we can kind of embrace that mindset, I think our students understand where we're coming from. I think it deepens the respect in the relationship, and it helps make sure that we're not getting too far away from the student so that we can still positively impact their lives.
When you hear from principals and teachers, as you do every day, multiple times a day, I'm sure, what are the most common things that you're hearing that they're worried about in the schools? Is it safety? Is it that, I mean, do most schools, I should know this in Washington, do they have a no phones in class policy?
Yes.
Okay. So what is it that when you're getting these calls, what's the common theme that they're worried about?
Well, I'll tell you, as a former principal, I am very well acquainted with really one of the number one themes that all schools want addressed. That's staffing. It is always around staffing.
What kind of staffing? Is it?
Across the board. You hear class sizes and we hear that, but what we've done is we've made some nice progress in staffing. I was a principal a number of years ago, and when I was at an elementary school. We had about 700 students, and I was a standalone principal that had a half-time dean that ran from one school to the other, juggling a caseload of students and what have you. But we have strengthened the resources that we're providing for our schools. And I'm really pleased with that. And that's really leadership from our Board of Trustees, and that's really before I have been in this position. This is really just a commitment to understanding what schools need. And so now we have no more standalone administrators in schools. They have a dean at minimum in our schools. When you look at staffing, another really important aspect, we have what we call our Comprehensive School Collaborative. And what this is this was a strategic effort by our school district to look at the schools that were identified by the state as our lowest performing schools. And we made a commitment to allocate additional resources to those schools. That includes an instructional coach. It includes a 180-day sub for that school that our principals can exercise discretion on how to best use some of these resources. And what we saw was 3 of our comprehensive schools, collaborative schools, improved 2-star ratings and are no longer collaborative schools. But we've been really intentional about not building that too big, because if you big it too big, you're going to kind of dilute those resources. And so what we've tried to do is, even when they exit based on reaching that 3-star status, we continue to provide those supports for that school for that additional year to try to make sure that they are able to put pieces in place. But your number one question when I meet with associations is always around resources, staff resources at the site level. But I'm proud of the way we've allocated resources in that area. So I think that tends to rise to the top of the list.
But resources are finite, and so if you're giving more over here to help these other schools, and there's these folks who have called you who said, why'd you ignore me? How come you're giving to them? And I'm being overly simplistic to make the point is that, let me ask the question this way. Imagine that you could go to Carson City and they would give you as much money as you want. What would you spend it on?
I would continue to make sure that, being in education, a lifelong educator for many years, a deep belief that I have is the more positive adults you have in buildings to support students, the more likely the outcomes will be for improved learning, improved outcomes. And so it would really be in that area. Staffing would be a big part of it. I mean, again, we hear class size reduction, and in fact are really not even funded to those class size reductions. So, these are really important aspects, and I really think staffing at school level is important. And then I could probably take that list much further down as well, but that one really rises to the top.
Yeah. I was also wondering if, as you mentioned, this idea of like helping schools that are underperforming get up to performance levels. Governor Lombardo has said that he wants to see more results, right, from schools, and he's, passed a bill to take tougher approaches on schools that are underperforming. How are you preparing for those policies to come into place that some of your fellow rural superintendents have called punitive measures?
Yeah, well, we're going to try to stay ahead of them, and that's why we built the collaborative. Because, our mindset is, and I really appreciate this question and having an opportunity to respond to it. Our system has been built on no child left behind, accountability, accountability, accountability. And what we've seen from that is really marginal gains at best. When you look at NAEP scores, some of the most stable academic measures that we have in our system over the last 20 years, we see us staying in a pretty similar place that we were. And I have a belief that all educators desire accountability. We do, but there are really productive and healthy ways to go about ensuring accountability in our schools with our staff that don't have to come from such a policy level. And I think when you look at comparisons with international school districts, international education, we tend to spend a lot of time on the backside of our system. Accountabilities, evaluations, and how are we going to increase performance on the backside of the system. What we find is higher performing international schools, countries, put much more investment on the front side of the system. And so as a part of that, where are we seeing that? Well, we're seeing the idea of all schools will have to be trained in the science of reading. Wonderful. Science of reading is very tried and true, and we're having really good success with it in our school district. It really doesn't have the definition needed for schools to be able to implement that front side of the system piece that's going to really help it. So I think we can improve outcomes, we can improve schools, but it does not have to become an overly, as you mentioned, maybe some of the rural or other superintendents have said, punitive approach. We have to move beyond that. That's 20 years old in our system, and we're just not seeing the yield from that approach. And so I hope that we can give that some thought. Are we preparing for all aspects of SB 460? Yes, we're looking at it. We're preparing and trying to make sure that we can address improvement. But again, accountability comes in many different forms, and it's not necessarily most effective having to see it up at a policy type level.
I've heard this tug of war forever. We have about 10 minutes, maybe a little longer left, and I want to get to the nub of this because your money comes from those folks in Carson City, not the federal. But and so, and I've had some fun with him tonight. But I want to say something about the former governor. He really cared about education, and when he proposed what was really a modest change to how to fund education is to try to make it more stable, and he talked about accountability at the same time because he knew he had to talk about it. The criticism that rained down on him was absolutely ludicrous because people oversimplify everything, right? Not every underperforming school is underperforming for the same reason, right? And so it's difficult to pass policies, but his was very thoughtful, and you know, it probably cost him a lot of friends doing what he did, but he believed it was right, and it was a remarkable accomplishment, and believe me, I remember that very well. I guess the question I would have is, you now have a governor, and I'm not being critical of him or laudatory, but he has now come to the conclusion that unless we have school choice of some kind, not just opportunity scholarships, but school choice, which to me could be read as, okay, the public school system has failed. We need to give parents an out now so they can do this. Does that make your job tougher?
It's just another opportunity. I feel like we've...
You're really going to go with that?
I am. No, let me deepen it. First, let me say that now President of UNR, President Sandoval, and Governor Sandoval, I have the utmost respect for the work he has done and the leadership he has exhibited in Nevada. It has been tremendous, monumental, thoughtful, and I remember having opportunities with Governor Sandoval at that time, coming and visiting my school, and our governor being willing to stop everything to speak with our sixth graders on their graduation. So I want to start by saying that. Now I lost my thought just a bit, but I wanted to start there. But school choice, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. We recognize that choice is important. We are all on the same team, and that same team is for students. And however we can make sure that our students are most successful, let's go about that. So what did we do in our school district? We offer school choice. We are in school choice right now. Our parents can apply to go to any school in our school district. And in fact, in doing that this past year, just under 95% of our parents got one of their top 3 choices if they didn't want to go to their zone school. And it makes sense because sometimes sometimes circumstances are what help kids, families thrive in schools. And so, you know, when we look at school choice, and, you know, I get some of the underlying aspect to that, but right now we're working with the Nevada Department of Education on how we have implemented school choice, and they're building off of the Washoe County School District model on school choice.
But that's not the school choice the governor's talking about. You know that. You know that. I mean, he's not talking about zone variances, right? He's talking about, and I think he's tapped into something, to be honest with you, especially in Clark County, by the way, this frustration that parents have, whether it's legitimate or not. They have frustration either based on their own kids' experience or friends' experience, and they say, why shouldn't I be able to get some money to send my kid to a private school? Now, there are some, And I tend to believe this a little bit, Superintendent, that this could be the unraveling of the entire public education system, and people don't necessarily think of the big picture there. But he is not going to let go of this. I don't think. And he may get reelected.
John, I appreciate you underlining that for me. I do think that public education is fundamental to the United States, and we want to really have our eyes wide open with public education right now. And I understand that there might be desire to allow school choice and funding to go in other directions. But I hope that we will continue to be very mindful of the impact that can have on the public education system. And like I said, I appreciate your sentiment, and I do believe it's something we want to have our eyes wide open on in terms of protecting, because remember, public education, every student that comes in our doors, our arms are open. We say, come on in. We want you to be in our schools, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure you're successful. Public education is a foundational aspect of what we do in our country. And so I just think it's important that we proceed with caution and proceed carefully with the precipice that we are at right now, and how we want to look forward to the next legislative session and really see if we can help bring some alignment and some thoughtful intention back into the way we're approaching education.
Now, the glib thing for me to say here is good luck with that. But I will not say, well, what I will ask, and I'm going to let Rocio ask the final question in a second, is do you meet with legislators regularly? Do you get them to tour your schools and show, because, and especially Republican legislators, right?
Yeah.
And to show them, and does the governor come and tour schools? Have you ever invited him? Do you have his number?
We absolutely want to take all of our legislative figures through our schools, and often get asked to do so. We've had governors read to our students and be a part of our classrooms.
That's a photo op, though. Come
and
on.
Our tours, and I do think it's educating, because as I mentioned, and as you have also reiterated, it's not a simple answer to helping elevate the education we're trying to provide for our community. And the greater we can educate our decision makers, the better off we're going to be. The more that they can see firsthand the work that is occurring in our buildings. We just did a recent tour with one of our elected officials, and the walkaway was, I cannot believe what is happening in this building. Aviation programs, fire and science programs, and it was just an overwhelming, wow, there are great things happening. So I do think for us to have some success in this important area of which you've wished us some luck is making sure that our policymakers are educated at the levels that will be beneficial to help balance out all of the decisions and all the policy that they have to make. And that helps them with that work. So, yes.
All right, what did we miss, Rocio? Wrap it up here.
I mean, we talked about all these issues that the district is facing, and you still seem so optimistic about the future of education. What keeps that energy alive in you? What are we doing right in Nevada?
We're doing a lot right. Remember, that is what keeps my energy, is how much right that we're doing. I mean, I see firsthand what we are doing for our kids and our families, regularly reaching out with the highest level of gratitude in terms of what we're doing for their children. And so I'm not really sure where else you operate from other than an optimistic perspective. We have to be. It's education. Education's about reaching the ideal. And I think if we lack some of that optimism, that maybe doesn't serve us well. And so I remain optimistic. I am not putting my head in the sand and not realizing the challenges that are in front of us. But we are going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to be thoughtful. We're going to do things together. And we're going to try to continue to help the whole of Nevada. And I'll try to finish because I know we're wrapping
That's
up.
all right.
But one of the things that we're doing is we're not just trying to think for just Washoe County School District. Some of the recent legislation that has passed was AB 49. And this is something that benefited our entire state. And what that was is about reducing barriers to get high-quality staff quicker into our schools. I mean, it's pretty amazing that just a couple years back, we were starting the school year with over 150 unfilled classrooms on the first day of school. The past 2 years, this year and last year, under 15 unfilled. And I'm telling you, that's a great something for our students. But what we've done is we looked at reciprocity. What we were finding is that there's a lot of late movement in teacher, and they taught in a neighboring state, and they found out a spouse has another job in Nevada, and they're coming here. But we were having to wait 3 months before we could get them into the class. So we looked at provisional licensure. We've looked at how do we reduce barriers to make sure. So we're trying to think on the whole of education for the benefit of all Nevada students, and I really feel like that's been a substantive area of progress. And how did that come? By trying to educate our policymakers, making sure that they were aware, working with the Nevada Department of Education, and helping recognize the importance of recruiting and retaining high-quality staff.
So I just have one last question for you. Do you think that the Washoe County School Board of Trustees are doing a good job? No, I'm kidding. I'm not really going to do. I do want to say that. Listen, governor's a hard job. It's a hard job, but being superintendent of a school district is such a hard job. You're not going to get credit for any of the successes, but you'll get blamed for all the failures. That's the old cliche. I will say unabashedly, you're a great ambassador for the Washoe County School District. I can tell that your heart's in the right place. I might have to explain some of the politics of Carson City to you at some point, but because if that doesn't kill optimism, I don't know what does. But I really do appreciate your willingness to sit down with Rocio and me and discuss some of these issues. And I hope everyone here will show their appreciation for you coming forward. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really do appreciate all the folks who come to these events, whether it's Reno or Las Vegas. And we really do want to engage you too in these conversations. If you heard something tonight you want to talk to Rocio about, I mean, you thought that guy's a good guy, let me tell you something. No, I don't mean those kinds of stories. But we really do appreciate, because you could do something else with your evening, and you came out to hear this conversation. I really appreciate that. So thanks to all of you as well for coming. And Phil's going to come back up and wrap things up for us.
No, I just want to thank you. This is our second year partnering with John and his team, and usually he just drops the mics and walks off, and I'm like trying to chase him to say thank you. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for a really engaging conversation today. It is so important. We'll remind you there we're great partners. We're so happy for this, and we want to encourage you to come back to all the other ones we're going to have here and in Las Vegas, because it's a great partnership. It's a great way to learn a lot more. If you haven't had a chance to walk around too, I specifically mentioned we have the Kids Activity Center. We turned it all on. It's right around the corner. If you do nothing else, just take a quick peek. You're going to be surprised what we have to offer here. Thank you, John. Thank you all very much. And thank you for taking the time to come with us tonight.